Hello and welcome to Kemet Capital, the community of holders and seekers of African capital. I'm your host, JS, and you guys already know before we start, we begin with our word of affirmation. Our guiding principle is the Kobe Douglas function, guys, on our way to make Africa great again is through economic power, economic might. And in order for us to achieve that, we need to produce more in a more efficient way. So, guys, today we're going to react to this video that pertains to the total factor of productivity, which is the change in output, not from input. All right, guys, without further ado, we're going to jump into this video and discuss as we go along, as always.
Union is working with fintech players in the continent to drive financial inclusion in a bid to achieve Agenda 2063 and our Payment Service Directive. I had a candid conversation with Dr. Robert Ochola, the CEO of African Nenda, and here's more.
And as you know, African Nenda is focused on driving financial inclusion on the continent of Africa. And as you know,
All right, guys.
Today
All right, guys. So before we begin, we can have a proper introduction to African Nenda. I think it's that we know exactly who they are and what type of mission that they have. Okay, so I was able to get in the website. I encourage you guys to visit as well. There's a video on here that introduces the entity. So we're going to review this together. And yeah, that'll be the introduction for African Enda.
We are Africa Nenda. Nenda means go in Swahili, and this is exactly why we are here. We want to accelerate the expansion of access to low-cost instant payment systems to Africans all across the continent and accelerate their financial inclusion, which is an essential need in order for Africa to flourish. We work so that everybody in Africa, especially the financially excluded, will be able to make and receive a payment immediately at a low cost, regardless of where they are on the continent. We believe that instant and inclusive payment systems can play a pivotal role in creating universal access to financial services for many financially excluded adults and are critical to achieving universal financial inclusion in Africa by 2030. We intend to unlock these untapped opportunities to drive financial inclusion by advancing national and regional instant payments infrastructure. We do that through firstly providing pre-project support to leverage private capital into investment-ready inclusive instant payments projects, and secondly, strengthening capacity for and knowledge of instant payments in Africa's most influential institutions, partnering with the existing payments and digital financial services ecosystem. We are an independent African-led organization created to accelerate the growth of instant and inclusive payment systems that will benefit all Africans, including the poorest and currently financially excluded. Our team brings together experts in digital payments and leaders with regional expertise to support African institutions, governments, and the private sector. The time is now to scale financial inclusion through instant and inclusive payment systems. Join us. We are Africa Nenda.
All right, guys, this is African Nenda for you. More, I'm going to share with you guys this, on the website, they say view African, the map. So this is their map of operation. I don't know if you can see. Let me maybe zoom out a little bit. So basically, they are in operation in almost the entire continent, except, the former French colonies, which are here grayed out. We have Senegal, Mali, Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, there's Chad here, Central Africa, Central African Republic, Cameroon, and so forth. So basically, all the French colonies are not, involved with this entity, which is going to be interesting when we continue the video. So Let's continue and hear what Robert Ochola has to say.
Problem we have is 450 million of our brothers and sisters on the continent are financially excluded. That means they don't have, be it a mobile wallet, even a bank account, and they keep their money in cash. So the key takeouts from our session in Lagos was really to emphasize the fact that in Africa, we can actually build payment digital solutions which drive financial inclusion using our local talent. So we took a group of central bank colleagues from different parts of Africa so they can actually see how a homegrown solution has been significant in driving financial inclusion in the great country of Nigeria. Thank you.
Of course, many would
Guys,
ask why Nigeria? Clearly, this is a market that we cannot ignore.
guys, just before we continue, we have to understand why an institution like African Lender matters, because it's here to drive, right? Often many payment system solutions are imported or based on general models that are not really, geared towards African solutions. So African Lender helps to adapt and to localize those initiatives in the local context. This tends to lead to more sustainable and relevant systems. So you also have a focus of African Enda in interoperability and scale. By pushing for upper inclusive systems, they help reduce fragmentation, and a fragmented payment ecosystem are costly and inefficient in general. Also, there is an alignment in policy and practice by bridging the gap between central banks, regulators, and fintech providers. This helps policy be grounded in what works on the ground. Because they are actually talking with local experts and or sector leaders. Also support the undeserved population ultimately. The emphasis is on financial inclusion, women, rural, informal sectors, and low income, ensuring that digital payments don't leave people behind. Guys, we have to understand that in the financial infrastructure, the payment system is one of the crucial, fulcrum because it's like in the body. You have your arteries, you have your veins. If your arteries are clogged, the blood cannot, go through, flow through easily, and now you have blockages, you have a heart attack, and so forth. That's the same for the economy. If your payment system, if your money, if the velocity of the money, the velocity of the money is the rate of usage. So if the velocity of your money or of your currency is slow, that means there's slow economic activity. So payment system are crucial, guys, for efficiencies in the market. You have more people in the financial systems, so that means you have a larger saving base. You have more people pulling their money into banks, and those banks can allocate those funds towards useful usages. So let's continue.
Absolutely. One of the great things about the continent of Africa, and I know we're talking about 54 different diverse countries, but we can take learnings. And Nigeria has continued to be a trailblazer in terms of driving technology uptake, in terms of driving fintech revolutions. And therefore, what they've done with the NIBS, my brother Premier, who's the CEO, they have actually launched a lot of fundamental products which are game changers. And therefore, we thought it's best to actually take learnings from homegrown solutions on the continent, where we speak maybe different languages, but we have certain commonalities that affect our citizens.
Right.
So this is really why Nigeria.
Right, guys. So he's talking about here NIBS. NIBS is the Nigerian Interbank Settlement System. Guys, this is a pioneering system in my opinion, that needs a model that needs to be replicated everywhere. So the NIBS is the central player in Nigeria financial infrastructure. It acts as the backbone for electronic payment and interbank transactions within the country. So the NIPS was established in 1993. It's owned by the Central Bank of Nigeria and participating banks, so deposited banks that have deposit account with the Central Bank of Nigeria. So the purpose of the NIPS is to modernize and digitalize Nigeria payment ecosystems by ensuring efficient, reliable, and secure settlement of interbank transactions. So, what are the key products and services of the NIPS? So they have the NIP, which is the NIPS instant payment. So it is an instant interbank transfer available 24/7. They also have the Nigerian electronic fund transfer, it is a batch-based, non-real-time transfer. So in North America, it's equivalent to the ACH. The ACH is the aggregate clearing house. So you also have a BVN, which is a bank verification number. It's a biometric-based identity system for all banks in Nigeria. So it's a way to identify your customers. In banking, there's something that they call the KYC, know your customer. So with the BVN, the bank verification number, which is centralized, the data is centralized within the within the NIPS. So as I said, it's to identify our bank Nigerians, which is huge in terms of identity verification, fraud prevention, and so forth. You also have the NQR, which is the Nigeria's national QR code payment system, which enable quick merchant payments via mobile devices. I have also the point of sale ATM switching, which ensures that cards from any bank work across all terminals. And finally, you have the e-bills pay, which is an electronic bill payment platform for utilities, government, telcos, etc. So in essence, the NIPS is to Nigeria what you have to. I talked about the ACH, so it's a combination of ACH, SWIFT, and VisaNet combined. So ACH, as I said, it's automated clearing house. It's a domestic workhorse for bulk, low, non-urgent payment. So, for example, you pay your electric bill via your bank. That payment goes through the ACH. Now you have the SWIFT. SWIFT stands for Society of Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication. So, as an illustrative example, a Nigerian importers, pays a supplier in France. So that message to his bank will travel through over the SWIFT correspondent bank. And finally, the VisaNet is the consumer payments highway for real-time card transaction. So you buy coffee with a Visa card, transaction runs over VisaNet. So the NIBS is the combination of those three systems, which are very, guarded in not in Occidental world in general, in the Western world in general. But in Nigeria, they have combined all those three elements into one. But you also have the added capability of fraud prevention because you have, personal identification through the bank verification number. So all in all, in my opinion, guys, this needs to be replicated all over the continent to facilitate the interoperability that African Nenda is trying to, to achieve. All right, continue.
Yeah, was a great test case.
Quite important. And looking at the big picture, many a times you hear people saying digitization is the future. But in equal measure, there is quite a lot to be covered when it comes to bridging the gap. I'd like to know, as a company, where are you seeing opportunity and how are you moving towards this?
Absolutely. And that's a great question. Digitalization has transformed the landscape over the last, I'll talk about my experience since 2006. I come from Kenya, as you know, and people speak about the M-Pesa mobile money, and we've seen that drive financial inclusion. We've now reached a certain status where we've rolled out technology, we've reached certain levels in terms of mobile money uptick, but the cost continues to be a challenge. And one of the things that we need to solve through technology and digitization is bring down the cost to serve. And that's why, despite the significant shifts you've seen in upticks of mobile money, we still have 450 million Africans who are financially excluded, despite the upticks you've seen in intra-African trade. We still are stuck at about 17% of the continent doing intra-regional trade. So we're only trading really with 17% of our potential opportunities.
70% is not a large amount. It needs to be increased. We need to be more. We need to do more trade within ourselves. It needs to be increased. 70. Want to say non-material, but those are peanuts, guys. We need to do more.
With the advent of things like AI, you can now take to a farmer sitting anywhere on the continent the best-in-class solutions for an agronomist, for even a small-scale farmer. And as you know, in Africa, we have about 33 million farmers. So these are some of the things that I believe the platforms we're building are going to create an interoperable layer where fintechs, banks, mobile money operators can build on top of that to really now leapfrog into what I think will be the next
And that's why the NIPS, which is the Nigerian Interbank Settlement System, it's perfect for that, because you already have, identity verification, BVN, bank verification number, so you know your customers, and it's you have the amalgamation of, the ACH, SWIFT, and the VisaNet system within one. So you can pay your electric bills, you can pay your merchants with the point of sales, and it increases efficiencies all over the place. So basically, you can be in Nigeria and have a customer, let's say in Kenya, and through that interoperability, that guy can pay you through his mobile cell phone. It goes through the NIPS system, because the NIPS system is also similar to SWIFT, so which is a Society for International Financial Communication. There you go. So in Kenya, you're here, your customer is there, he pays you through mobile money, and the money falls right into your account. Increase efficiencies. Now you can have cross-border transaction, because you have that interoperability.
frontier.
And where do you
Huge, guys.
see the role of central banks in all this, especially in a time and space where financial inclusion has been a key buzzword in many markets, but inclusion does not necessarily translate into digitization?
Absolutely. And again, that's another great
Facilitates
question. So, from a policy and regulatory perspective, this is going to be fundamental. Recently, you've seen the Reserve Bank of South Africa allowing changing the framework so that fintechs can actually directly integrate into their PayShap, which is their financial inclusion, or what I call in Africa, Nenda, we call it inclusive instant payment solution. Some people call it a national switch. So they've allowed fintechs to plug in. So the regulatory landscape will have to change, and it's fundamental to the shifts that we need. The next thing we also need to do is make sure that the landscape allows for interoperability, both from an in-country perspective, but also from a cross-border perspective. So we want to see some of the barriers that exist for cross-border payments being brought down. Today, Africa loses about $5 billion every year on foreign exchange settlement, which is a huge number. So we believe that central banks can level the playing field, encourage fintechs to also have a much more commonality in terms of standards for onboarding fintechs. And we're working with the African Union today on what we're calling a payment service directive, which should harmonize how payments are done across, and the payment regulation within the continent. So these are some of the fundamental regulatory barriers that need to be overcome so that we can actually begin to play at a level playing field and really transform this continent, especially in line with Agenda 2063.
I like that you brought up some interesting numbers in your earlier sentiments, but when you look at the potential that IPS has for Africa, how big is it? And what would be your call to action, especially to private sector investors, governments, and other partners who can be critical in this development of a thriving ecosystem?
Yeah, and thank you for that question. Before I just finalize or say my call to action in terms of that outtake, what I'd like to say is a couple of things. Today, when you look at the Findex report, which is a it's a report that goes out every sort of 3 to 5 years, you will find that today on the continent of Africa, financial inclusion in some markets like Kenya, like countries like Uganda, sitting at 80%. And in some markets, it goes down to as low as 10%. That's a big discrepancy between
It's a
one part
big
of
gap.
Africa to the other. So I think what's fundamental is that we all need to
And guys, in Kenya, what has brought that number to 80% of financial inclusion? It's initiative like M-Pesa. So the fintech world, it's crucial, at least on the continent, for our financial inclusion. You have this case study in M-Pesa. Now, imagine 80% of Kenya is financially included. If we bring that number um, to a continent level, so let's say 80% of Africa is financially included, that will represent a huge pool of saving that can be tapped into for all the venture capital, investment need that we talked about, for more sovereign funds investing in private equity, in more infrastructure based type of investments. So we need to be that financial inclusion is it's one of our goal, guys. It's one of our something that we need to tackle, basically.
speak with one voice, one language, and accept our theory of change, which states that national payment systems which are inclusive must be the building block to what we're calling digital public infrastructure. So that has to be one of the baseline that over the next 3 to 5 years, we must ensure every single African country has an inclusive instant payment system, because that is the bedrock on which digitization will grow. So that foundational layer needs to be put in place.
Correct.
Number one. Number two is once you put that in, then you begin to open up the regulatory frameworks for fintechs, mobile network operators, banks to interoperate on a level playing field. And then finally, once you bring on board our citizens who are financially included, we're still left with a very important part of what we call financial health. Therefore, insurance products for those who are underserved, savings products for those who are underserved, investment products for those who are underserved. We've seen in markets across other continents where the cost of working capital credit were brought down from 24% down to 3%. So you can imagine a kiosk owner who's running a kiosk and maybe turning, let's say, $10 to $100 a day. They can now borrow in certain markets at 3% as opposed to the high 24% that we see.
Wow.
So this is really the call to action, is let's create the foundational layers, which will then allow our citizens, our population, our small and medium enterprises to have a baseline on which they can actually leapfrog. That is our call to action as African Ender.
All right, guys. Interesting conversation with Robert, CEO of African Ender. Wow. The end there, it really hits home, because we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago, we introduced Chardec, we introduced a firm like Hero Tractor. All those entity, they need the financial, the payment system to be integrated and to be digitalized. And through access of mobile devices, people can access their service. So you can see how the financial infrastructure has a huge impact on the economic development of any country or region in the world. So with that said, you guys let me know what you think in the comment. That was an interesting conversation as always. And you guys be safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.